So good morning. Today is February 5th. It's 11:30 here on a Wednesday, and I'm bringing to order the Athens City Planning Commission meeting. Looking in both directions beside me, I see that we not only have a quorum, but we also have all five committee members here available. The first order of business is the disposition of the minutes for December 18th. Has everyone had a chance to look at them, and are there any questions, concerns, or changes or additions that need to be made? Anybody have anything?
Good.
Good. Okay. So that being the case, I will accept a motion to accept the minutes of December 18th.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay. So I guess one of the things I ought to do here at this point, I should have done it earlier, is anyone going to want to speak today, if they would raise their right hand? No speakers? Yes. Just in case. Okay. So, and all I ask is that you confirm the fact that everything that you will present to this commission, if in fact you do speak, will be the truth to the best of your knowledge. Thank you. Okay. So we have no cases today, but we do have one communication, cable lane annexation. So, David or,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
yeah.
This is actually doesn't follow the cases and communications that you typically have for Title 41. In our zoning code 230203, annexations need to go to this board before they go to city council, and this board shall make a determination on what zone they would propose to city council that this annexation come into the city as. So what we're doing today is just making a recommendation to city council for the zone, proposed zone of this annexation of Cable Lane.
Okay. And so there will not need to be any case with
No,
regard
sir.
to this
Not
one.
for-
So
not for this.
our action today will,
It's simply a recommendation
Okay.
to city council.
okay. Does anybody want to speak to the annexation directly? Do you, I assume this is the property at the top of Cable Lane, or is that not correct?
23 acres, I believe.
Or is that the property with the long driveway that was for sale for a number of years?
I'd better speak. This is
Okay.
the property with the long driveways, I think 37 plus or minus acres.
Okay.
Of hillside.
Okay.
That is squeezed in behind the existing houses. It does have direct access to Cable Lane. My client, the owner, Frander Properties LLC, proposes R1. Nothing else seems to make sense there.
Uh-huh, okay. Okay. Any discussion here on with the commission?
I think, I don't know, in my opinion, this is pretty simple and straightforward, and the request is R1, and we move forward with recommending to city council that this annexation and the properties therein be zoned as R1.
Yes.
I'd just like to ask a question about, so, as we've talked about housing in neighborhoods, affordable housing, and what if somebody, say, wanted to build, we've seen designs that came through like the structure point and some of the recommendations they're making for like clusters of homes or garden things, or what would that require if we consider that? I mean, not that we want to make it necessarily providing that or not, but I'd just like to know the option.
So you were wondering if some annexation comes in with multifamily, proposed multifamily, that would be the annexation zone that you would look at that and make a determination of what you think the best zone that would be coming into the city. So it does not have to be R1. If you've got if you're over there on Hooper and you want to see an R2 or an R3 for annexed pieces over there, that's what you would make a recommendation. It does not have to be R1.
I guess the second follow-up question was, does it make sense to consider that kind of zoning too? Because if we declared R1, let's just do a hypothetical, an R1 today, and then you say, well, 5 homes are gonna go in, but then we decided a small cluster of, garden homes or multi-unit, then they would need to come before a Board of Zoning Appeals to change the R1 to something that would allow multifamily.
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to rezone a property, but yes, that's what would have to happen, yes.
Hey, if I could take that a step further, I think, 38 acres is pretty large. And, if they sought a subdivision, request from the city, if they followed straight on the subdivision codes, and we've talked about how our R1 subdivision minimum lot size is a problem.
We changed
We
that.
changed that, so we shrunk it.
Right.
So
Right.
we already shrunk it. If you wanted smaller lots than that even, for, like you said, cluster homes, I think, probably we would recommend to a developer to do a PUD. And then the PUD could be overlaid on top of that R1, as opposed to necessarily changing the zoning. It just would have to go through council as a PUD.
Sure, okay, thanks.
On a little bit different, so the property at the top of Cable Lane is outside the city as well. Were they approached to see if they had any interest, or does it not make sense to try to?
We have had conversations about that. I think I've talked to several different potential buyers up there, and one of the things the city had requested here was that on the north side of this property that's being annexed, that we have a blanket utility easement in case there was future growth up there where we would annex this piece to the north. We would be able to provide utilities to that piece through this property, which that makes the most sense to do. So that's included, I think, in the packet,
Okay.
that blanket utility easement for water and sewer. So
Okay.
we thought about that
Yeah,
and tried
okay.
to accommodate.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Just as a point of clarification, it is separate.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that this packet is what went before the county commissioners, and if they were going to highlight that, they're gonna just have to do a separate instrument that grants to the city that easement in conjunction. And our recommendation to the representative for the property owners is to bring that through concurrent with the annexation petition, that the city just accepts that easement.
Yes?
Another question about public notice, because Director Riggs, I think you and I have had the conversation before of whether a public hearing or public notice, and you believe that the public notice is sufficient for this. And would that apply to this, and have the adjacent property owners been notified?
Yeah, that's actually part of the annexation process, so
Okay.
the city council will do that notification. All we're doing here is making a recommendation to them for this petition of what zone that should be, that
it.
should be.
Okay, so
Right,
it
so
happens
that,
later.
all that public notification is done at city council level.
Okay.
Anything else? No further comments, then I will entertain a motion to annex the Cable Lane property, the 30-plus acres there off of Cable Lane, and bring it and make the recommendation to council that it be designated R1. Is there a motion to that effect?
I make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we're to reports, Mr. Riggs.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Could either you or Megan update me on where we stand with the two proposed affordable housing projects that we sent on to city council? Is there can we get an update on that?
I was gonna say, Mr. Model want to return.
He's gonna leave.
Yeah. At least for the proposed development on Pomeroy, I believe that one is still moving forward. Did it get actually approved? I don't think so. Okay.
Second reading.
Second reading, okay, thank you. And then for the one out on Hooper Street, Mr. Mott is here, but I know that they have had, and they decided to switch their funding source, I believe, but Mr. Mott can definitely give a more detailed summary.
Sure. Not exactly switching the funding source. Hilltide Partners has decided to pursue the next round of LIHTC funding, which will have different guidelines. So they've withdrawn their application. Those new guidelines should be out in, I believe, 3 weeks. And so sometime within the near future, there will be a new application for rezoning. They'll restart it. If there are any substantial changes to the proposed site plan to go with that, they wanted to bring all that forward at once. So starting over.
Does that mean both projects could potentially move forward, or still only one of the two would?
Both projects could move forward, but they would be in different funding rounds. So it would be one potentially awarded this funding round, so presumably this year, and then the next one presumably about the same time next year. And realistically, my guess is even if they both stayed in the first round, one would be awarded, and you'd probably be looking at the other one the following year anyway. So, and I've also heard, I think that WODA is working on something in relation to potentially the same award. So over the next 3 to 5 years, you might have 3 to 5 new LIHTC funded developments.
Just a question on the funding cycle. Is there something substantially that's changing in the regulations between this cycle and next on that funding, LIHTC funding?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
The timing just worked better for Hilltide to go into the next cycle.
Got it.
So because they know that there are going to be new guidelines, they just withdrew the application until they can see those guidelines and then start over.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mott, do you know, because I am kind of curious about this, are the guidelines coming through OFA, or is it coming from, is it federal level, or is it state level for these guidelines?
My
Well,
understanding is that these are new guidelines coming out of OFA.
I don't know.
And I qualify that I've been engaged to deal with zoning and annexation and am not certain. But I believe it's new guidelines coming out of OFA.
Thank you very much. Next item then is Megan Jennings on city planner. Any updates or things we need to think about, reports?
Sure. The one thing that I'll report out on is in 2 weeks, on Tuesday, February 18th, we are hosting a public open house for the proposed neighborhood corridor overlay zone. So we've been working with American Structure Point on that and are looking forward to going to the public. We will be hosting that open house at 6 p.m. that evening, and it will be located at the new fire station headquarters at 120 East Stimson Avenue. In addition to that open house, we are also offering stakeholder sessions for any local businesses that are interested to have like a one-on-one meeting with city staff and the American Structure Point team to talk about their needs as a local business on a neighborhood corridor. Earlier this morning, I emailed out to you all the flyer that we will be advertising this event with, and I do have paper copies if anyone would like one, but I did want to advertise that here at this meeting officially.
Anything else?
That'll be it, yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to change to, I was going to ask her another question. Well, I was just curious about if anybody could update on the discussion that took place at the community center regarding the loss of businesses. And I was not able to make that. I had another meeting that day, or that evening at that time. Anybody have any kind of update on that? I wonder whether there are some very good takeaways for the community and for the staff, or what was the situation? Just,
I wasn't there. I didn't
Okay.
attend that.
anybody?
The mayor, you were?
Yes, I was there. Yeah, it was an interesting meeting. There was a large number of people there. I did present solutions to the issues at hand, as well as actual data that showed, yes, the city has lost due to various market pressures, a number of businesses in the uptown area and elsewhere, not just in the uptown area, but we have also gained over 2024 21 new businesses in the city of Athens as well, which is a narrative that isn't heard enough in light of what the intent was behind this town hall meeting. In terms of takeaways, like I said, I brought forward 6 potential solutions to at least looking more closely at businesses in the city of Athens. But unfortunately, there were not a whole lot of other potential solutions that were being brought forward, although there was approximately 150 people that were there in attendance. More to follow, more to come on that.
Well, it's a challenge in this community with the student population being gone as much as it is, and so, you know, businesses and faculty leaving town, and other things. It is a challenge. You know, the population of Athens goes up and down. Deal with businesses.
To your point, which is interesting, you know, we're kind of the inverse of a coastal tourist town, to where the summer months they explode in population, and then during the winter months it seeds, reseeds, and that's the same with Athens, but in reverse, to where our population absolutely grows from late August until graduation in the end of April, beginning of May. The other thing that is just, I think, clear to those of us who really kind of see it and feel it is that, you know, when you have, in the Uptown area in particular, businesses that are built around the university, because a lot of them are, you know, whether it's the food sector or the bar sector or retail in the Uptown area, you know, me not being a business owner, but watching it firsthand, as I have for many decades now, is that the market, their customers are constantly changing, although they're staying 19.9 years of age, you know, and with that comes, you know, new behaviors in terms of shopping, what they're shopping for. You know, they're coming from, you know, by and large, Columbus, Cleveland, Dayton, Cincinnati, Toledo, Pittsburgh, where there may be brands or stores that they are used to shopping at that don't exist here in Athens, and so they're going to do a lot of their shopping online. I look at my own front porch and am no longer surprised to see a package sitting on my front doorstep every other day, it seems, you know, because my daughters want something from, go name a place, that doesn't currently exist in Athens. So I guess my point being is that, you know, the market pressures are so varied, not just in Athens, but elsewhere when it comes to what people's shopping behaviors have become. And in particular, since we're a college town, it is the largest, one of the largest populations, you know, comes in and they are looking for certain things. And, you know, property taxes, all kinds of things that are affecting businesses in the area. So we have a lot to dig into yet. We're looking to do.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I have
Mr.
2 comments
Okay.
on that particular issue. So I think the relevance to this body of Planning Commission is to recognize 2 things. Number one, you know, what policies and steps should we be taking to diversify the Athens economy beyond an over-reliance on the university population? And, you know, over the years, we've talked about it and we've tried. Any step we can take to set policy, Planning Commission policy, that helps the city do that, I think is moving in the correct direction. The second thing is, to the mayor's point about market pressures, is commerce revolves around this thing. And I think with regards to what Planning Commission do to and I don't know what the answer is, but what can Planning Commission do through zoning, through you know, our other parts of city code setting and approvals that allows for businesses that are able to capitalize on the market pressures that the mayor spoke about, driven by this thing. That's what's going to make us successful. So I think otherwise we're just chasing old models. So that's my commentary on loss of small business related to what our job is as a planning commission.
So now I'll bring up my other question, because it kind of relates tangentially to what Director Stone was saying, and it also relates to this neighborhood corridor open house. We talked earlier about Structure Point working further with the city to look at zoning. And so is this one of the areas, and do we have an update on when they're going to be coming back to us to doing some revisions on our zoning code?
We should probably have them come to a planning commission meeting.
Yeah. One thing I realized I forgot to mention is that after this open house, you guys have a planning commission meeting on the 19th, the day after. So American Structure Point would like to attend that meeting to give a report out on the public input. And we have been working with them on a general code audit. We're not getting into like a red line text document level of detail, but more like an administrative reorganization of some aspects of the code. And so they will give a presentation on that as well. Just a general summary of kind of what they've been working on, but the final recommendations, they'll probably happen later in the spring and probably the same timeline as the final text for the overlay zone.
So here's my other, I don't know, lack of expertise question. So we're talking about neighborhood corridors here and an overlay zone for that. That will infect some of our other zoning areas that we have, like the historic districts and things like that. And, I guess I'm further like backing off from 30,000 feet to look at this in neighborhoods, then how will it affect zoning for businesses? And the ability to put a grocery store back on the south side on Richland Avenue, if it backs up to an R1. So that would be my interest also from them about that.
Okay.
Perhaps we could set our zoning such that you can buy from said grocery store with a click and shop, right? And maybe make the zoning such that somehow it supports that business model, since that's what people tend to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. So we have no attendees, so there's will not be any need for time for public comment here. Are there any other announcements or other business? Yes.
So I do, Mr. Chair, thank you. So Director Riggs and I have been approached again by the gathering place related to the Conestoga Huts issue, and this has to do with temporary housing for unhoused individuals and the fact that our zoning currently does not allow for that. So right now, trailer homes, we're living in a mobile type home is only allowed in B3 zones in a trailer park, or you can live in an RV on your own property if you're building a house. So those are the only two times that you can have somebody live in a mobile, and did I say that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so from that perspective, we think we probably ought to have a discussion about a little broadening of the allowance of people to live in mobile living facilities, and at the same time, we thought it was appropriate to talk about a couple other types of construction that I think traditionally have been prohibited, but now are more common. And I don't know, David, if you wanted to jump into that.
Sure.
And I think we need to start a conversation at this body about
I
it.
had intended to bring that to the board today, but I just ran out of time. So one of the things I'd like to look at is some suggested changes to the zoning code to address tiny homes, shipping container homes, and the Conestoga huts. And so I'm working on the proposed code changes, and hopefully I have it to you for the next meeting. But those are things that have come up, and what we have in the code is static, right? And so new things come up like Conestoga huts or shipping container homes that the code doesn't address because that was never a thing. Now we're seeing some of those. We're seeing requests for small homes, container homes, and Conestoga huts that doesn't really fit into our code. So we need to continually adjust our code to keep up with the new trends as they're coming along, and this will be part of that.
And may I add accessory units? Accessory dwelling units?
So
Do
we've
we
been
wanna get
talking
that?
with Structure Point about detached and attached accessory dwelling units, and so we'll have some conversations about that from the Structure Point
Okay, good.
zoning overview.
I do think that the conversation around ADUs in particular should involve more focused public input, because I think there will be a lot of fear around those units. And so I think public engagement and education on how those can look and function in Athens will be really important. They're an important residential use. I know the Affordable Housing Commission is in support of them, but in order to get our regulations constructed in a way that the community can really support them and get behind them and see their use, it will involve more public engagement.
Okay, and am I remembering correctly that you've had some experience with doing that kind of work in Louisville?
Lexington, yes.
Lexington, excuse me.
Yeah.
Would you, when you get a chance, share that with me or with all of us? I think what the regulations are in Lexington. That
Sure.
might help us as a model.
Gladly.
Yes,
Is there guidance that you would want from, particularly people that you don't see every day, right? You see me every day, but the rest of the folks on this board, as you develop what you want to bring forward, or are there any questions that you would want? So, and just that way,
So one of the things we're looking at for tiny homes is a minimum square footage allowed, and the state has some guidelines on that, and we have some in our own code. It looks like we're going to be close to 320 square feet would be the minimum size of a tiny home you would have, and that would have to include a kitchen, it would have to include a bathroom, and it would have to include a bedroom and living space. So that's the kind of stuff we're thinking about. For Conestoga huts, we were considering what zone they should go in, what exactly constitutes the definition of what a Conestoga hut is, and facilities for those. So you don't want to put one of these groups of Conestoga huts out that doesn't have bathroom facilities, for instance. So you don't want to have some facilities within a certain distance of these. May want to also restrict where they would go. Like you don't want them so close to a park or a school or something. So we have a lot of restrictions, 150 feet or 250 feet from an R zone or from something. We would maybe think about something like that. For the container homes, we'd also look at the minimum square footage, because a container home is going to be much less. One shipping container is going to be much less than 320 square feet. So you'd almost have to have a minimum of two that were pushed together to make a container home. And then my thought is that we would want it to look more like a house than a box, right? So you'd want a roof on it, and you'd want siding on the outside of it. So that's the considerations we're having. I'd love to receive any input from you on any or all of that.
perfect, I think. Oh, that'll be good. I have some thoughts I'll give. Rob, I'm sorry, you must not have got the word that we start at 11:30 now. I was on my way here and had to, the bell rang on my phone telling me it was 10 minutes to the meeting, and so I had to run most of the way to get here. So I'd forgotten about it, but we maybe didn't get out of any real good notice. I would ask, do you have anything? We are at the bottom of the agenda. The only item we had on was the annexation of a piece of property on Cable Lane. Our recommendation is for city council to consider it as an R1 property. So if you would raise your right hand and confirm the fact that what you will say here is true to the best of your knowledge, I would appreciate that.
I do.
Thank you.
So actually, I caught some of the, probably part of the meeting I was most interested in right at the end there. So I definitely agree that we need to entertain changing the code to allow ADUs within the city. There's already lots of them out there. They're not causing any problems that I've ever seen or heard of. Some of them are even being used as Airbnbs, and that's with owner-occupied in the main building, and that's been working fine too. In fact, I've seen a situation where someone who was opposed to Airbnbs in the neighborhood, in the R1 neighborhood, didn't even realize for 6 months that the garage that had been converted to apartment many decades before had been converted to a short-term rental, and it had been rented many times in 6 months, and she had no idea it was even happening because it was not a disturbance. It was not a problem. So I think that many of the fears are not founded, and so I'd like to see us loosen those restrictions to allow that, and I think that's a very good step in the right direction. I think I've mentioned that here before to you as well, that I think that's something we need to include in the repertoire of things that we're looking at trying to enable. And it benefits the property owners because they can get some extra revenue potentially. And here's an example. Property owner across the street from me bought a house because he was able to afford it because it had a grandfathered in accessory dwelling unit, garage that had been converted. And this is on Morris Ave in the Near East Side neighborhood. And so he had $900 a month income coming off of that helped him pay the mortgage. Well, when that renter left about a year later, he went in and renovated that ADU and decided, hey, I like this, I'm gonna move in here. He moved in and rented out the main house to a family of 4. And then he's a year later sold the house and the whole property to that family and was renting from them. So this whole dynamic that was enabled by someone who is a local professional carpenter, who couldn't afford a house in the neighborhood on his own without that supplemental income, really, that ADU made it possible for him to advance. And now he owns a property on Pomeroy Road, a house on Pomeroy Road, single family home there. So he's been able to graduate just because in just 4 years less, because of that ADU really helped him get going. So just an example, anecdote. Thanks.
David Riggs, so I think there was a tiny house built on Ring Street. Is it, do you know how big that was?
Yeah, it was, I think it's multi-bedroom, if I remember right. I know the house you're talking about.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily consider that a tiny house. It's a small house, but
It's
not
real small.
necessarily a tiny house.
Yeah, 2-story, I think.
Yep,
and-
2-story.
Yeah. So it's a really,
On a very
it's got a small footprint and
It
a
does
small
have
lot.
small lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
Okay.
an odd shaped
But
lot.
it's it's probably, he's an architect or an architect to be, I guess. He's at the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Maybe he's close to finishing, but he built that home. Thank you. Anything else? Yes.
I have something to share. I'd like to at least get out there. As I reflect on so much that has gone through this body, and thinking as I drove up to University Estates yesterday and took a look at, is it going to be Woods Edge? Is what the street's going to be called?
Woods Edge is the development, sir. It's,
development?
It's Homestead Court
Homestead Court.
is the cul-de-sac.
But to see progress taking place up there with what'll be, hopefully in the future, 42 new units there, as well as looking at our new fire station headquarters, looking at, as painful as it was to some of our business owners, as well as just people commuting up and down West Union, that it is looking so much better than it did before, and the fact that we now have new infrastructure underground. I just want to state for the record that there's been some truly impressive and, quite honestly, amazing things that have happened, that have come through this body. The annexation conversation today, which is going to lead to new single-family home, possibly more. The work that our city planner, Megan Jennings, that you're doing, David Riggs, the work that you're doing, it's, there's a lot of really positive things happening regardless of some of the narrative that we're hearing out there within the city of Athens. Soon to have more ADA accessible sidewalks and curb cuts in the city of Athens. with the $1 million plus that we're gonna be dedicating towards improvements, the new ADA ramps that are on at least part of Court and Union right now, we will have, improve the west side of that intersection in the future. Hopefully we finally get good bids on the Uptown Improvement Project, which is going to continue to further enhance the city of Athens as a place that people are going to want to come and enjoy and experience, as well as those of us who live here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add, I was just in Yellow Springs yesterday. If you haven't been, that's a very cool little town.
Yeah.
But the thing I'll call out is you don't see shipping containers, you don't see huts, you don't see things. And we have so much land around the county that could we have the subdivision of these types of homes and invest in a bus route to make easy accessibility versus doing something in the downtown area that is already a very high cost per square foot. We're already limited with what we have. So I guess I would just ask that as we consider these projects, it's maybe something that the county could help us with of identifying. Once again, the bike path goes so far now. There's plenty of areas you could do a neighborhood of shipping containers. And once again, it'd be a worthwhile investment, I think, in the city to try to figure out transportation versus putting those types of things within walking distance of businesses when plenty of citizens of Athens would kill to have, build a home in something that's super accessible to everything. So I just wanted to throw that out there as I've been to some smaller towns and you aren't seeing these developments that I've seen at least. So.
Thank you, Austin. Anything else? If not, our next meeting is February 19th, 2 weeks from today at 11:30. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Austin, and a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.